In 2003, Florida harvested 242 million boxes of oranges. 2 decades later, however, this season, they're expecting only 12 million boxes. That is a 95% drop in just 20 years, in a single generation. Something is obviously very wrong with Florida's orange industry. And that something came here from our good old friends in the People's Republic of China. Citrus farmers all over the Sunshine State are seeing the destruction of their family farms as well as their livelihoods. Some, though, are fighting back. But the challenges they face are basically like having to climb a giant mountain barefoot in the rain with their hands tied behind their backs. Let's go through all the details together right after 2 quick pieces of housekeeping. Firstly, please do smash those like and subscribe buttons so this video can be picked up by the YouTube algorithm and shared out to ever more people. Thank you so much for that. And then secondly, I mentioned it in a previous episode as well, but over on Epic TV, we just published a phenomenal new documentary called Final Hours. And it's a really unique film because in it, we've interviewed a bunch of people who had died before. Either they were clinically dead, meaning no pulse, no breath, not even a flicker of consciousness, just clinically 100% dead, or they were in a coma and they were brain dead. But either way, they came back to life, they got resuscitated, and they were able to remember everything that they saw on the other side. And the stories they told about their experiences were really something else. The worlds they saw, the unconditional feeling of love radiating all around them, how they were able to see the entirety of their lives unfold in chronological order from outside the constraints of time and space. And what was really interesting is that so many people, completely unrelated to one another from different walks of life, they've never met or talked before, but they had such similar stories after they came back to life. It's a really good movie, and it shines a light on this growing new body of actual scientific research, a field of study that's, I guess you can call, post-death experiences. If you want to check it out, which I would highly recommend, the link to the film will be right there at the top of the description box below. I hope you watch it. And then now, shifting gears and getting back to the main topic, when someone mentions Florida, usually one of 3 things comes to mind. Firstly, there's Florida man, always up to something. Secondly, there is sunshine. It is, of course, called the Sunshine State. And then lastly, there are oranges, the iconic symbol of Florida. It's so iconic that it even appears on the standard issue license plates in the state. And it makes sense. For decades, Florida oranges have been grown by the billions and sold to the entire world as either fruits or orange juice. But unfortunately, that's not the case anymore. In 2003, Florida harvested 242 million boxes of oranges. This season, however, the Department of Agriculture is expecting only about 12 million boxes. And in fact, at the most recent 2026 Florida Citrus Show, many of the growers in attendance, they said that even 12 million boxes is a bit of a stretch. And so that's really devastating. In the course of just a single generation, state production dropped by about 230 million boxes. Or put another way, as I mentioned at the top of the episode, it dropped by 95%. And so the obvious question here is, what went wrong? All right, just to pause here for a super quick moment. If you've watched our program, Facts Matter, then you know that we focus on one thing, which is the facts. Not speculation, not narratives, just what the data shows. And right now, the data globally is pointing in a direction people should really be paying attention to, which is the fact that global conflicts are fueling market uncertainty. That's why I believe in owning something real, something physical, something that the government can't just inflate away, which is physical gold and physical silver from today's sponsor, which is American Hartford Gold, the company that I trust and who I've been personally buying from for many years now. These are tangible assets. They're not tied to policy decisions or shifting narratives. Gold has held its value for thousands of years through inflation, currency changes, the rise and fall of empires, as well as general global instability. In a certain sense, gold actually thrives in periods of global instability. And American Hartford Gold is a good company. They have an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau, thousands of 5-star reviews. They can deliver your gold and your silver directly to your doorstep, or they can help you set up a gold IRA if you're trying to diversify your retirement. And right now, when you call and mention my name, Roman, you can get up to $20,000 in free silver with your first qualifying purchase. So give them a call, 866-242-2352, or just text Roman to 65532. That's again, 866-242-2352, or text Roman to 65532. I'll also throw all their details. You'll be able to find them down in the description box below. And so the obvious question here is, what went wrong? There were many factors, many minor factors. You had the occasional freeze over the last 20 years. You, of course, have the seasonal hurricanes passing through. You have the recent drought that hit Florida. But all those things are not the real answer because they all fade in comparison to the devastation that was wreaked on the state by a tiny insect that came from China. Up on your screen is a picture of the flea-sized Asian citrus psyllid. It invaded Florida around the year 1998. Originating in tropical climates native to Asia, it's not exactly 100% clear how this insect made it all the way to Florida. There are some indications that it was imported, such as records from the USDA showing hundreds of interceptions of these insects leading up to the year 1998. But it's not clear whether this was some form of bio-warfare or it was just an accident where people were smuggling in Asian plants into America, not knowing that those plants have some stowaway bugs that were attached to them and then those bugs got released into the wild. Regardless of how they got here, though, once in Florida, the Asian citrus psyllid caused true devastation. This particular insect, it feeds on citrus tree leaves. And in return for the sustenance they get from the leaves, they in turn give the tree a bacterial infection known as Huanglongbing, which is the Chinese name for yellow dragon disease. However, here in America, we just call it citrus greening. And the disease basically devastates the tree's canopy. The tree experiences a rapid loss of roots, which basically slowly sucks the life out of healthy trees as they struggle to be able to absorb nutrients from the ground. Once a tree gets infected, the oranges that it produces, they both struggle to reach maturity and they are unable to achieve a normal level of sugar content. And so the sweet taste that made the whole world fall in love with Florida's oranges is gone. The oranges become tasteless, and then eventually the tree just stops producing fruits altogether and gives up. And currently, there is no known cure for Huanglongbing. I will mention maybe the Chinese Communist Party has developed a cure in secret, but that's for them to know. Publicly, there is no known cure. And for Florida growers, the spread of this disease has been career-ending. In the 28 years since it was first detected, Huanglongbing is basically almost everywhere. According to the University of Florida, quote, more than 90% of acres in Florida's citrus operation are affected by citrus greening, while more than 80% of the trees are infected. And to this end, you had Slate magazine recently send some of their reporters down to Florida, and they asked citrus farmers how many of their trees were afflicted. And every single farmer that they spoke with told them that it was 100%. Also, in that very same article, they spoke with an agricultural researcher with the USDA that told the magazine that, quote, it could spread to the whole Gulf Coast. And indeed, the impact of this disease reaches far beyond just the geographical borders of Florida. The American Farm Bureau Federation, they say that citrus greening has slashed orange production throughout the entire nation by 80% since the year 2000. Also, it's slashed grapefruit production by 88%. For your reference, 25 years ago, America produced 45% of the world's orange juice. Now, however, it's just 6%. Even the countries of Egypt and South Africa export more oranges than we do. I will mention the only, I guess you can say, US-based winner in all this is the state of California, which has now taken over as America's largest citrus producer. But still, obviously, as you can tell by those numbers, they pale in comparison to what Florida was able to produce in its heyday. Now, in Florida, growers have a choice to make right now. They can either look for a solution or they can move on. And many farmers have decided to move on. They're fleeing what appears to them to be a dying profession. And as they leave, developers are coming in, they're clearing out the orchards, they're paving the land, and then they're building on top of it. And once that happens, once they do that, there's really no going back, meaning no more orange trees on those plots of land. But not all of Florida's farmers are just ready to close the book on their rich citrus history. Some are putting up a fight and looking for basically a 12th round comeback. To that end, you had the CEO of Florida Citrus Mutual, which is the state's largest trade association for citrus growers, say the following, quote, Florida's citrus growers have a long history of meeting adversity with resilience. Growers are working diligently to rebuild, implementing grove management tools that work, and replanting trees that show tolerance to disease to accelerate gains in fruit quality, size, and volume. And to that end, these resilient farmers are working alongside scientists to find ways, concrete ways, to beat the bugs. The University of Florida's Citrus Research and Education Center offered several potential paths forward. Apart from using insecticides, A protective netting known as exclusion mesh can be used to stop infestation for the first few years of a tree's life. In fact, we here at the Epoch Times sent our own team of reporters down to Florida, and they came back with some great photos of what these things look like in practice. Farmers basically cover young saplings with translucent mesh bags that allow light and moisture to pass through while stopping any insects. They tent the tree's canopy to keep the insect out long enough for the tree to take hold and to mature. The bags allow citrus trees to produce quality fruit for at least 30 months. But the problem with using that method is that after they're removed, the trees do begin to falter. And also, this process increases the cost by quite a lot. One family we spoke with, the Tillett family, when they started growing citrus, it cost them $2 to plant a single tree. Now, inflation took that up to $10. And then on top of that, they now spend $10 on this protective mesh, and then another $10 on the ground stake that it's tied to. And so basically, it went from $2 per tree to $30 per tree. And you can bet that's going to be reflected on the supermarket store shelves. Sidney Tillett, the farmer we spoke with, he told us that he used to sell bushels of fruit for $24, which included shipping, but now that same bushel goes for $200. Quote, "Fruit costs have skyrocketed. People used to come in and buy a bushel, and now they'll come in and buy 2 or 3 pieces of fruit. People are paying $1 or $2 for a single piece of fruit, and that bothers my conscience." But even though it bothers the conscience, the math just doesn't work out any other way. Other farmers, though, they've come up with more radical approaches. For instance, our reporter spoke with another farming family. I hope I'm pronouncing their name correctly, the Bevilacquas, and they've built a massive mesh tent over their grapefruit orchards over the entire thing. Shane Bevilacqua, the farmer, he told our reporters here at the Epoch Times the following, quote, "It's early, but it's proving to keep the psyllid out, allow the tree to remain healthy, and put on the healthy crop and beautiful fruit that Florida has been known for decades." The Bevilacquas, they own 750 acres of citrus orchard, which equates to roughly 33 million square feet. And even though this protective screen costs them somewhere around like tens of millions of dollars, they see it as necessary because the other alternative method, the mesh covering that attaches directly to the individual trees, it only delays infection, while this one actually prevents it altogether. Quote, "That's the thing that's so difficult about greening. It's the reinfection over and over and over. The tree just can't battle out of it. We're very optimistic about what we're seeing. Will it be an industry-wide thing? Will it be a niche? I think only time will tell. But our family's excited about it. It's working for us." And so that is a positive development. It's an interesting, innovative approach. We're also seeing progress at the legislative level in the state of Florida. In March of this year, you had Governor Ron DeSantis sign into law the 2026 Florida Farm Bill SB 290. And that law included a provision to strengthen citrus research. Also, you had state and federal programs helping with the cost of planting new trees, as well as to develop tools to treat disease. Also, one of the gubernatorial candidates for the upcoming governor race in Florida, he floated an interesting idea, sort of a free market idea, to offer a huge reward to anyone that can solve this problem. Take a listen.
Here's my solution as Florida governor. Any scientist in the world who wants to develop a strand of citrus that is impervious to greening, we're going to pay you $1 billion cash. If you can prove, and we'll grow it and we'll do it for 18 months, if there's a scientist or a group of scientists in the world who want to step up and actually solve a problem that has torn asunder entire communities, it's unemployed men and women, hollowed out entire towns across my state, we're going to pay you $1 billion, because what that industry represented, that would merely be an investment in bringing back the number one thing that put my state on the map.
Now, I will mention the reward is still kind of an idea that's been floating around. I looked it up. There is no reward being offered thus far, but there are grants and sort of smaller rewards for individual parts of the problem. However, if you happen to be a biologically minded individual, or if you're looking for a challenge, maybe you're a young person looking for a career in STEM or some place to make an impact in science, well, here it is. Consider trying to find a way to cure citrus greening. You can not only make a name for yourself, but also you can revive a dying industry in the state of Florida. You would probably become a state, maybe even a national hero, and they would put up your statue all throughout the state. So consider doing that. If you'd like to learn more about the problem, the history of the problem, how it's affecting Florida growers, as well as some more technical things like the development of a potential cure to this problem, I will throw the links to my research notes. You'll be able to find them down in the description box below. And then lastly, please do smash those like and subscribe buttons if you haven't already. And then lastly, do consider checking out that film, Final Hours. It's a really unique film that both for me, but also a lot of people that watched the film, they told us afterwards that it really almost made them rethink what they believed life was. Because when those people came back and they were able to remember what they saw on the other side after they had clinically died, and they told us about it, it really just makes you wonder and makes you rethink what this whole thing that we call life is. So check it out. It's a great film. I'll link it again down at the top of the description box below. You just click on that link. It'll take you to Epic 2E where you can watch it right away.
From this life, it's more just like a light, the light of God. I was so happy. I just felt like more and more of the pain of this world was just floating away.
What do these human experiences mean for our collective soul?
The more we can come into harmony, love, and kindness, the more we're aligned with the essence of the universe.
And then until next time, I'm your host, Roman from the Epic Times. Stay informed, and most importantly, stay free.